it's always good enough. It's just, is it not perfect? And the reality is it's never perfect. Perfect is impossible. It's not real. It doesn't exist. For me, it's been as a perfectionist guy who iterates a lot, I've taken a lot of that struggle on internally, but I don't force on other people. I'm very grateful to other people who are willing to help, right?
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that people are willing to be a part of this team, that people want to work at a ramen shop, that people are willing to dedicate their time and energy to doing this very difficult process.
Because this is the first time we're meeting, I got it, Sir Ramen Lord.
Oh God!
Welcome.
Please don't. Please don't do
to
that.
the show. I know you've jokingly said that in the past. When guests come into your restaurant, you're like, I don't know you. It's Sir Ramen Lord.
It's Sir Ramen Lord, dude. No, I mean, if you call me Ramen Lord, I'll be like very pleased. Frankly, like I wouldn't be offended if somebody called me that. But you can call me Mike. That is my name.
Excellent.
Right?
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Mike.
Pleasure to be
Welcome
here.
To the show. You've done so many interviews, so much content, so much research that I've kind of, over the last 2 weeks, have garnered in my head and in my notes. But the main goal for this episode is to give, and this is a local podcast, so to give Chicagoans a brief history of ramen. Because in your opinion, is ramen still young in Chicago?
It's young in general as a food stuff.
Okay.
But it's particularly young in America. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want them to walk away with a better understanding of the culture of ramen.
Sure.
As well as what they can come to expect when they step into your restaurant.
Now, to be clear, I want just to caveat before we even begin. I'm a white person who is not Japanese, so I am taking this from the lens of a person who is sitting outside of the fundamental culture of this dish. But as we'll discuss, this dish's history and its kind of just its legacy are very multifaceted, nuanced, and steeped in a lot of things like appropriation, localization, cultural exchange. And so, it's hard to really describe the dish in like this is Japanese or this is not Japanese.
I appreciate the nuances and the clarity, and in every episode and interview you've done, your humility is palpable.
For better or worse, right? Especially when you're opening a restaurant. Sometimes you have to be kind of cocky, I think. And I don't really ride that wave very strong, so we'll see how it goes. But yes, I know my place, I guess is what I would say in the context of it, right? Which is I am visiting this dish, but I am a deep appreciator of it. And I have spent a lot of time fussing over the details and doing a lot of research and analysis and work on it. So I feel like I'm allowed to talk about it.
Yeah. And setting this up today, and thinking about how to title this episode, I think I'm going to go around the lines of putting in the iterations or the importance of iterations.
Okay.
And how long do you stick with something before you give it up? Because I think in our generation, people kind of try something new and it's easy to give up. So that'll be another topic in a bit. There's a quote, it's kind of a dated quote, but it's from 2017. And in Chicago, would you agree that in the early 2010s, like 2014, 15 is when ramen came onto the scene from High Five or Strings and around those times?
I would say that, so you had like two waves. The first is like just the general like Mitsuwa and these kind of Arlington Heights burbs openings that occurred, and those happened, maybe 20 years ago. But those were primarily just for Japanese people who lived in those areas. And so they had a certain aesthetic to them, and they're a lot of them were chains. They came from Japan directly. Ramen itself in the city of Chicago was pretty sparse. I mean, there were like certain chain or big sushi restaurants that might sell it as a side item, but no one really focusing on it until I want to say 2010 or so.
Because at this point, were you starting to make your own ramen, 2010-ish?
I had just started.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you grew up in the western suburbs?
I grew up in Oak Park.
And you probably grew up eating just instant ramen as well. But where was the seed? I know you spent some time abroad.
It was Santoka was the seed of it is in Japan.
Okay.
Right? I wouldn't say that I was really into ramen until I was eating it all the time in Japan.
Sure.
But prior to that, I'd eaten what I would consider real ramen, and that was at like Santoka.
I guess what was the seed that led you to study Japanese?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I usually tell people it was like me just being a contrarian. The language was available. You needed to study a language in high school. I didn't want to study Spanish or
Good for
French.
you.
But,
Yeah.
Also like we all watch like Dragon Ball Z and anime and play video games and stuff. And so it's kind of like, oh, and I can learn that language. That's kind of cool, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't know. It just felt like broadly, I didn't want to do the stuff that everyone else was doing. And Japanese seemed interesting and compelling enough to want to learn. But it wasn't like some sort of like planned methodology of like, if I learn Japanese, I can go do X, Y, Z. It was just like, that seems cool. Let's do it.
And so what part of learning that led you to pursue it further in college?
Oh, I went to Japan the third year of studying Japanese. So going to Japan in high school.
High school?
I was 17. Yeah, I've been going to Japan since I was like 17. So again, like I have
and
I
you
have a
stated this on
relationship to
previous
Japan for a
episodes
long time.
of how much luck came your way too.
A lot of luck, but
the opportunity there.
Tons of opportunity. Yeah. I mean, it's lucky that OPRF, the high school, had a Japanese program in the first place. That's really rare.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people do not have that opportunity.
I grew up in Palatine, and so I think Spanish, German, French.
That's pretty typical. And to be fair, I probably would have studied Spanish or French if I was going to a normal high school. But for whatever reason, this high school had a Japanese program, so I took it.
Okay.
I just thought it was weird and different. And
so with the first 2 years, so third year. So
third year, I'm junior year, in between junior and senior year.
When did you start Japanese?
Freshman year.
Freshman.
I studied it for 4 years in high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
The whole 4 years I was studying Japanese.
That's amazing.
Which only equated to about a year of college learning, by the way. Like when I actually went to college, I majored in Japanese, and my Japanese was not very good. It's still not very good. Japanese is a hard language. It's still not very good. But I majored in it, and it took a while.
Right. So give me a brief overview of your 1 year in Japan.
That was in college, right?
Okay.
And that was from I can't believe I don't remember, 2009, 2010.
Okay.
I lived in Hokkaido in Sapporo, which is the capital of Hokkaido. Hokkaido is one of the 4 islands of Japan. There's 4 main islands and then a bunch of tiny small islands, and islands like Okinawa and these other small islands, but there's kind of these big 4 islands, right? And Hokkaido is the second biggest one behind only Honshu. Honshu is like where Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto and all the major cities are located on Honshu. And Hokkaido is a unique island in that it was originally occupied by a native group of people called the Ryukyu. And then in the late 1800s, Japan colonized it. So it does not have a lot of the legacy history that Japan has fundamentally, right? You think about a city like Kyoto, thousands of years old. The most old city in Japan, in Hokkaido, is Sapporo. It was this founding city when they took it over, and it's like late 1800s. In fact, it's founded in part by the United States government, who agrees during that period to help them open an agriculture college. And that's called the Sapporo Agriculture College. A professor by the name of William S. Clark actually flies from America to Japan to go with the government to open up this college. And he's like a weird figure. If you walk around Sapporo, you'll see like statues of him. Okay. It's this white guy, which is kind of crazy, right? He's got a huge long mustache, and there's like statues of him, and he has like sayings that everybody knows. But this city fundamentally is very Western in comparison to a lot of cities in Japan by result. For instance, it's built on a grid, which is really, really weird for a new city, like for an old city, right? Like if you think about any old city, they don't build them in grids. No. They just don't think about the architecture that way. A lot of the architecture in Sapporo has colonial, kind of Victorian era stylings to it, like lots of slats and kind of like Western woodwork, which is, again, really atypical. Like if you look at the old government building, it looks like something you'd see in like colonial Williamsburg. Yeah. Yeah. There's like a lot of those things. So Sapporo is a weird, different place. And it's one of the biggest cities in Japan. It's like top 5, I think. It's about 2 million people. So it's a big city, but it's not the same as other places.
Okay. In what sense?
Well, it's Western,
Just
so it's like
okay.
the streets are wider,
Okay.
right? It was built in an era where transportation was more oriented
Okay.
and wasn't about as being as dense. The streets are wider, things are on a grid. It's just more, there's more Western influence, and also because it's newer, it doesn't have like that historical, I don't want to say baggage, but I think a lot of these large cities are kind of encumbered by the way they once were, and they still need to figure out how to navigate. Like,
Is that in the sense that it's holding him back?
well, just in terms of its infrastructure. Like Tokyo is a kind of tragic example in that the reason Tokyo is so modern in a lot of ways is because the United States firebombed them in the 40s during World War II and burned down tons of the infrastructure, which in a weird Phoenix-like way gave it the ability to completely modernize. And that's why in a lot of ways the infrastructure there, and it's just built a culture around modernization. Sapporo is kind of in this weird middle place where it's like it was modern but not super modern, and so like they kind of have some stuff, they kind of don't have some stuff. It fits this nice middle ground between like Kyoto, which is arguably eager to retain a ton of its tradition, although that's debatable. there's like there's a whole movement around like maintaining these old townhomes in Kyoto called machiya, and it's like how do you maintain the culture of that? And then conversely, Sapporo doesn't have this culture at all, so they don't really care, but also it's on Hokkaido and it's like not on the main island, so it's kind of seen as exotic, and it's kind of like Hokkaido in general is kind of seen as exotic.
Sure.
It's like going to the new frontier, basically.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Because that's its history. It's the new frontier, even though realistically it's also a product of disenfranchising indigenous people, which again, like every country does it, I guess. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. So like the Ryukyu people who live there are just... Sorry, it's not Ryukyu. Ryukyu is in Okinawa. That's a separate place. It's the Ainu people. So Japan has done this a number of times where they take indigenous places and then they're like, you're gone. Goodbye. Right? Like, It's ours now. It's interesting to see how the culture is implemented versus extradited and removed. Hokkaido has a unique Western ideology. In addition, because it's based on this, like Sapporo is founded based on the college. So the Sapporo Agricultural College is the reason the city exists.
Wow.
That university turns into what's now called as Hokkaido University, which is where I studied abroad.
Interesting. Okay.
So the legacy of that city is very tied to academics in a lot of ways, and also tied heavily to agriculture. So in the actual college, in the university, is a farm, a full-on farm that grows like cows for dairy production. It's very much like integrated into the way of life there, the thought about the product, the ingredient. And, that's pretty cool and atypical, I think, in a lot of ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so during your time there, how often would you have a bowl of ramen? And what else did you have?
So starting, like, maybe once a week, once or twice a week.
Oh.
Not super often. But then I had like a bowl of ramen that was like, oh, this is the jam. It was at Sumire. I specifically remember it. This is like this pretty legendary series of shops in Hokkaido. Arguably one of the inventors of a very Hokkaido-esque style of ramen, if you will. So this one was located in this location called Susukino, which is basically a red light district, although that's kind of disingenuous to call it that because it's really like where people just go and party. I mean, there are brothels, frankly. It's considered one of the biggest red light districts in the world, but most people just go there to have a good time and party. And so a ramen shop catering to drunk people is a good thing in general. This place is open until 11, which is late for a ramen shop.
Okay.
Most ramen shops are only open during lunch if they're really popular, and very few of them are open past 9 o'clock. Right?
Are you in general, whether it's here in Chicago or anywhere, are you maybe more so traveling abroad, but are you the type of person that looks up restaurants, or would you walk into a place?
I mean, this was so long ago that there wasn't even a thing to do that with, right? Like you could look at Tabelog, which is like the Japanese equivalent of like a Yelp.
Sure.
But people weren't writing that much in it, so it's
could you just get lucky? Like there are few ramen shops that could do you wrong.
I think that most food in general in Japan is pretty dang good.
Okay.
I can think on one hand the number of times I had bad meals, and it was always like, where exactly am I? This doesn't even look like it's a kitchen. This looks like what is this food? Is this? I think I'm gonna get food poisoning. So yeah, and it was very early in the process. You kind of suss them out, and after a while, you like notice the certain aesthetic that you're looking for. And not to say that ramen shops don't have a certain kind of dirtiness or hole in the wall quality to them. A lot of the times they do, because fundamentally the food is not meant to be ostentatious. It's low brow. It's frankly approachable. It's fast food. So these restaurants just do not have lots of capital to work with to make them beautiful and grandiose. They're ramen shops. They're noodle shops, right? Like, it's just for normal everyday people. But you can walk into one and you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to get food poisoning from here, right? Like, although I have walked into somewhere, it's like the walls are literally stained with like grease, you know? Because again, it's just not meant to be anything like particularly unique in that regard.
And so what were some of the qualities after having some great ramen that struck a chord with you?
So sumire is a very unique style of miso ramen. First of all, miso ramen is invented in Sapporo in 1955. And when I had gone to the restaurant that invented it, and I was like, this stuff sucks. And that's actually a common critique, because it's kind of old school. It's kind of outdated in terms of its term.
Compared to the previous, like, what, shuo or shio?
Or just even misos, right?
Other
like,
misos.
Miso kind of has gone through 3 phases of its progression. And if you think about the first, which is the invention, arguably hasn't changed very much. So it's kind of just, it's like old tasting. It tastes old. It's got loads of MSG in it. It's like super salty, super salty. There's tons of lard on it in a way that's kind of fatty and potentially like difficult to eat. The noodles have been made by the same manufacturer for like 80 years. So, you know, they have like a brown hue to them, which is really strange looking. And unless you're used to it, and that's fine. But it's just like, there's all these like things about it. It's like, this thing feels old.
Okay.
And sometimes you want that. But if you're a kid living in Sapporo, or you're like a 20-year-old, you're like, I don't want that. That stuff's old. Like, that's old people food. I don't want to eat that anymore.
Okay.
Food in general goes through these evolutions, right? As we modernize, we think more about the composition of the dish. We think more about the ingredients, you know, and Japanese cooking in general has this kind of fixation on those particulars that has, especially in ramen, occurred more in like the 90s and even the early 2000s. So this dish feels old. And when I ate it, I was like, this is terrible. I'll never eat here again. That has since changed, by the way. The last time I went in like 2019, I was like, this thing slaps. I'm having it again.
Hell
I need to come back again. But I think also I have become more nostalgic for things as I've gotten older. And, you know, that was over 12 years ago when I had that first time. So it was like awful. But sumire did not feel that way, even though it too is old. That shop it opens in like the 70s. And it's pretty old. But it does some things to the bowl that kind of pump it up in terms of things that I enjoyed. The miso flavor is more pronounced. It's kind of more rounded, more balanced. It doesn't feel as aggressively salty. The noodles are really nice. They're by the same manufacturer, I believe, but they're just like a little different in terms of the spec. They're a little more curly. They're yellow. They have a little more alkalinity to them. It had actual pieces of chashu, which is like actual pieces of pork, whereas the first miso ramen is just like ground pork. Like, they're really like, it's like junk. Like, it's just meant to get you the food and get it on away, right? Everything is like cooked down more in the sumire bowl. It's much more like caramelized, and the roundness of the bowl is more pronounced.
And why do you think they pivoted? Where did the evolution come from?
Yeah, the story of that shop is a little interesting in that it begins with this woman who just opened this shop, like ramen station, ramen eki. Or at least I think that's what it's called now. She opened a restaurant initially called, depending on who you talk to, sumire or junren. And it's because the characters could be read as either or. And in fact, the joke was that people would go in and they wouldn't know what to call it. They'd be like, oh, is this sumire? No, it's junren. Or is this junren? No, it's sumire. So she's running the shop, and it's in the 70s. So they've gotten past this kind of post-war debacle of scarcity, and they've gotten past this era of like really calorie density is important. So we got to load this thing up with vegetables and load this thing up with toppings and make the portion big. So instead, it's like, how do we make this more luxurious is the idea. And so what they do is like they add a lot of lard to the top of the bowl. It also kind of seals it off and keeps it super hot. They use a variety of misos in the blend, and the miso is more pronounced and more robust. And it gets pretty popular, so much so that when she eventually kind of becomes ill, her sons want to take up the reins, but they can't decide who's going to take control, and they have a falling out. And one opens a shop called Sumire, and the other opens a shop called Junren. So they're kind of like rivals. And they both do this similar style, which is what we call like this, what I call the second wave of miso ramen, which is like you've gone from junk, you've gone from like fill up the calories and get them going, right? Which is really what miso ramen's origins are. Put miso in it because it's going to make you feel full, right?
Okay.
To how do we elevate it? How do we make it more interesting? How do we make it more luxurious? And that's the second wave. And I just thought that wave was really interesting. I didn't think you could have ramen that was like that. I didn't know that kind of ramen existed. And it was just fundamentally different from any other miso ramen I'd ever had before. Amazing. So it was just like hooked. It was like, especially like you're like some college kid and you can get a bowl of ramen for like $9 at the time.
It's your fave.
It's my fave. It really is my fave. It's so good.
And you
did I'm salivating thinking about it right now, dude. It's crazy.
And you did a research paper? You did a project on
so the timeline is I hit Sumire, I don't know, October of 29, and then I'm like, okay, there's some cool stuff going on in Sapporo that I need to like learn more about, and I need to do my research. So I start hitting up ramen shops, and I'm kind of not really thinking about it, but I'm hitting up a lot of them, like every other day, every day. I'm like, let me see what's on Tabelog as an example. Let me see what people are saying is interesting. Let me talk to people who live here, get recommendations. I'm hitting up all these places. And then the semester ends, and I'm like, I need to figure out what I'm going to study for the next semester. I got to take some classes, and I have a couple credits available. So I talked to my advisor there, and I was like, can I do an independent study on ramen? Is that even possible? He's like, well, let's think about what this would be. So we kind of lay out what we're actually going to do for the plan. And so the plan was, obviously this needs to be Japanese oriented because I'm studying Japanese. I can't just like eat ramen. So in addition to, he wants me to like make like a guidebook basically, where I'm going to go to a bunch of shops and kind of like figure it out. But then in addition to that, he wants me to talk to a bunch of these chefs. So we develop like a curriculum where I'm going to have to interview a certain number of cooks. Where like very literally like this, I sat down with a camera and microphone and would interview them. Yeah.
You still have this footage?
Yeah, I'm sure I do. It's not good.
I'm sure some people are dying to see that.
Can you imagine? Like, I was actually just looking at it because I ended up interviewing the owner of Ajino Sanpei, the inventor of miso ramen.
Okay.
And boy, they didn't like no foreigners there. I'll tell you that. They were like, who is this guy? What is this guy doing? But it's very gracious of him to be willing to have me in. But it was like that. I was like, I had an advisor, and I like tried to like, in addition to pushing my Japanese, it also forced me to go to a lot of these ramen shops. And so by the end of it, I must have gone to like 100 ramen shops.
What do you think it was that allowed them or provided the grace for them to sit down with you?
Well, I don't know, because I got rejected a bunch. Like I reached out to the Sumire people. They were like, no. They were like, absolutely not.
Were you used to rejection before that point?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think much of it. I just assumed, I mean, it was super nerve wracking every time. Like I would call them.
How was your Japanese at that point?
Okay. But you have to, like, Japanese conversationally is so different than formal, like, requesting Japanese. Like, you have to learn a whole new grammatical structure called keigo, which, like, is kind of dying off, by the way, but it's still important. And then there's all this, like, you know, just like when you write a formal letter, you have to, like, learn how to communicate in that way. So, like, in Japanese, there are, like, specific phrases in letters that, like, if you write a letter to somebody, there are specific phrases you need to put in the beginning of the letter that comment on things like the weather or the season to show the formality of the communication. Oh. Yeah, so like I have to learn all those, and I've definitely forgotten all of them, by the way.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it's like I would sit down with my advisor and be like, let's write this letter. I'm going to write it to Sumire and like write it all out. And I'd be like, why are we talking about how it's spring? Like, it's so crazy.
And so what were the results of that independent study? What did you gather?
So I talked to 3 chefs pretty exhaustively. And for me, it was just like learning about their process and understanding kind of what drove them, what was interesting. And then I created kind of this, I'm sure this guide is now super outdated because it's 12, 13 years old, but I like made like a blog spot that had the top shops and talked about each of the components and talked about what we discussed. And it just kind of gave me a deep appreciation for the craft of it and also for the dish itself. Although admittedly not knowing too much about how it was made, because even to my best of my ability, everyone's pretty secretive in the ramen game. Like,
and why is that? What's with the gatekeeping?
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not.
Because you kick the doors down.
I'm not.
essentially.
Like, I have no secrets. In fact, I had one secret for most of my time, and that was like a component of the miso ramen I make, and there's no secrets about it anymore. I have no secrets. And I think part of that is, one chef did say he had no secrets to me when I was interviewing him. And the second, and I just found that very admirable because I had experienced so much secrecy prior to talking with him. And the second was, I feel like democratizing knowledge in general is a good thing. Having been a part of things like the internet, I just feel like exposing knowledge about things is an important thing that you as a steward of knowledge should do, especially when you're an outsider like me who is not really part of the culture but is visiting it. To me, it's like, well, why would I then hold secrets? They're not my secrets. They're everybody's. Everybody should know these things. It's not mine to know. It's everybody's to know. So it just makes sense broadly for me to share. Like, it made sense to share. And it felt weird to hide things.
Sure. Did you get an idea or a sense of like how their personal life was? Was there a balance? Because listening to your previous episodes, I get this, and reading some of your ebook, it's like, I get this, your ability to be so meticulous and detail oriented and going all in, like full send on ramen. And you speak on finding the beauty and the balance of ramen. Makes me wonder how balanced the other parts of your life are.
I think no. I don't think anybody in ramen who really takes it seriously has a balanced life.
Wow.
And to be clear, I don't think that's necessary.
Oh.
you just have to accept that. So it depends.
Yeah.
In Japan, where people are really fixated and it's hyper competitive, so you really got to kill it in a ramen shop in order to be successful. You kind of have to dedicate hardcore to the task at hand. And each ramen shop on its own is not making a lot of money, right? There's no liquor and apps and sides, and you can only really serve like 100 people a day. So if each bowl of ramen is $7-8, $700 a day in revenue is a terrible amount of money for a restaurant to make, right? Like, you basically can not hire anyone. You can hire like 1 or 2 people. It's just not enough. It's not enough money.
Yeah.
So these guys have to dedicate all their time to it because there's literally no money to go around. So
did you sense any part of them that wish it could be different?
I think a lot of these guys are working towards something.
Oh.
Right? Maybe they're working towards opening up another shop, or they're working towards, a deal with like, a licensing deal. Like, as an example, you can sometimes 7-Eleven with the big restaurants will like do an instant noodle, and then it's like you get a licensing deal, right? All of these chefs, just like in America, by the way, most chefs don't want to open just one restaurant and be done. They want a number of them because it helps spread out the work, and it means you can have more balance.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot about that in the context of my restaurant too, which was, I think it's very romantic to open up a spot that only has 7 to 10 seats and you're just there, but you cannot step away. There's no step away because there's not enough room in the restaurant for you to not work. You have to work. And I think a lot of ramen shop owners open thinking, well, if I can open a few more, then this won't be a problem.
Well, then you run into consistency and quality issues.
Yeah. I mean, this is always the dynamic of every restaurant in the world, which is the bigger you get, the harder it is to maintain quality. It's really easy to be quality when you're the only guy doing it, right? Because you can focus and you're going to care more than anyone. But when you have 2 restaurants, you can't be across both. And so you have to figure out the balance between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And also, how can I make this really good, but how can I make it so that other people can make it good? Some of it's culture and some of it's process and a lot of stuff.
Going back to the timeline, you come back to Wisconsin.
Yes.
Come back to Wisconsin, and you don't have ramen in front, like around you.
I got no ramen. This is around the time when ramen is just starting to become like trendy, though.
Were you still trendy in Wisconsin or trendy in
I think
US?
the United States. Like,
okay.
Definitely the first shops in Chicago are starting to percolate up. Like, Oyster, I think, opens in 2012.
Never been.
Oyster's pretty good.
Still around?
And it's funny because they make their own noodles. So it's like early in the process of these ramen shops opening in Chicago, noodle making is a thing, which is like really rare in Japan. Very few people are making their own noodles in Japan because it's tough. So, but yeah, 2010, There's basically like no ramen, although a ramen shop opens while I'm living in Madison, Wisconsin, and it is not good. So I'm not going to name who it is. There are more now that are good, but that place was not good.
Yeah.
Very bad, which further galvanized my desire to make it, right?
Okay.
Not in addition to not having it, even the restaurants that did have it kind of sucked at it. So it was like, well, I got to make it then, and I need it bad.
Yeah.
I got to like cure the itch. So I wound up making it. Like, I just kind of felt like, one, ignorance is bliss. So it's like, how hard could it be? Right?
Sure.
Which, like, because I was a good cook. Like, I've been cooking most of my life. So I had worked in some very basic kitchens doing stuff before. So I knew I liked cooking and I knew I could cook. But making ramen is a whole separate ballgame. It's totally different. And it's not like any other cuisines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
Like-
so how was it? How was it making it? How was it procuring all the ingredients?
Awful, dude. The ramen I made was so bad and it was so much work. Like, I was making the noodles on like a hand crank pasta machine.
Okay.
Terrible. Awful. Worst noodles ever. So bad. Terrible.
So could you find, were there Asian supermarkets around there?
There were a couple, but it's like, you know, what kind of ingredients are you going to be able to get? And to be fair, like, I don't think you need to have tons of Japanese ingredients to make good ramen. I think there is a place for a ramen dish that has more Western elements in it. But you still got to know the techniques. And I didn't know the techniques. To the best of my ability, I had asked a lot of these Japanese chefs in Hokkaido, how do you make the ramen? And they'd all kind of shut me down. And when they did tell me, it was very surface level high stuff. Well, we make the soup like this. We get the noodle, you know, and then we put it in the bowl. Like, I didn't even know what tare or aroma oil, these components, these fundamental components of the dish were until after leaving Japan.
Which is a good place to identify the components. It's in your
Yes.
ebook, but if someone were to go to a ramen shop and look at the menu, how can they start distinguishing different bowls of ramen?
Yes. So typically a bowl of ramen is distinguished by 5 components, although they'll usually highlight 1 or 2. Obviously, you have a ramen noodle. You need a ramen noodle and a ramen dish. But
Which is different from other noodles.
correct, in that it has an alkalining agent in it. It's a wheat-based noodle with an alkalining agent in it. It's very similar to a Chinese alkaline noodle. But typically, you need that alkaline noodle. You probably need a soup. You don't always need a soup. There's certain ramen styles that don't. But it uses a ramen noodle, right? Then you have a soup. And a lot of restaurants will delineate based on the soup type, right? Like, oh, this is a tonkotsu. That's a pork bone soup. This is a dashi. This is a chicken chintan or clear soup, right? They're talking about these different soups in terms of the context of the ramen. Noko, asari. These are different terminologies used to describe the viscosity of the soup, thick or thin, right? They're talking about the soup qualities in a lot of ways, right? So soup is a clear delineator. The second is the tare, as I mentioned before, which is the seasoning of the soup. That usually falls into 1 to 3 categories: soy sauce, salt, or miso. And those are always super delineating. And so you'll see, like, this is a shoyu ramen. That's a soy sauce ramen. Or this is a shio ramen. That's a salt ramen. And it's talking about what's the seasoning. That's typically the most common on the menu. Like, if you're on a menu, they're going to say, like, do you want a shoyu? Do you want a miso? Right? That's very common. But the soup is the other way that they'll delineate. And then the other ancillary components of the bowl are also delineating factors, but they're maybe less pronounced or less direct. Like, you wouldn't, I mean, maybe some people would. I personally focus on, well, what's the soup going to be? What's the tare going to be? What's the noodle going to be? And then they'll use other things like the aromatic oil on top to further highlight the flavor of the soup, or they'll change up the toppings. Those are the other 2 components. And so, you know, like, sometimes it's like, oh, this is the Wagyu ramen. It's got a big slice of Wagyu beef on it, and it costs $40.
Oh, my God.
Okay, well, I don't know. Or it's like, this is the truffle maze soba, and it's got a bunch of grated truffle on it, right? Like, those are delineation elements too. So that's 5 components: noodle, soup, tare, aroma oil, toppings. And each one of them can be delineated and changed. Each one of them changes and adjusts the bowl depending on how you compose it.
That's wild. And are there groups or chefs that are really trying to change up the combinations?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, ramen. So you mentioned at the top of this conversation, like, ramen is new. Or you said, like, how
Young.
old is ramen?
Yeah.
Ramen is young.
Okay.
Ramen arguably doesn't even exist until the 1900s. It definitely doesn't exist in Japan until the 1900s. And it really doesn't become popular in Japan until the 50s, after World War II, for a variety of anthropological reasons, which I'm happy to get into if you're curious about. Again, I'm just espousing knowledge that I've heard. But it becomes popular in the 50s. So that's pretty young for a foodstuff, especially in Japan, where like typical foods are like from the 1600s, right? Like sushi and tempura and these other dishes that you and I associate with Japan are much older, comparably older. And those are considered young by Japanese standards in a lot of ways too. Oh. So fundamentally, ramen is really young. It has barely like 3-4 generations in between different shops, right? And so as a result, there's not as much baggage to the dish in Japan. So you see a lot of innovation. People are always playing with the ideas, whether it's like, you know, like one time I saw a guy who was making like a mushroom aroma oil. And so he ground up porcini and then he cooked them in the oil and then he used that porcini as a topping. That's like highly unorthodox in Japanese cooking. That ingredient doesn't even exist in Japan fundamentally. Or you'll see guys who use 2 tares, 2 seasonings instead of 1, because one has like more fish, so it needs to be treated a certain way. The other is soy sauce, so they don't want to cook it. So they're balancing the 2 out. They're thinking about what are the 2 components here. Or double soups, right? So double soups emerge in the 90s and early 10s. And it's the idea that certain ingredients cook at different rates. And so to optimize, you cook them in separate soups and then blend them together at the end. It's like a dashi. If you have katsuobushi, it cooks very quickly and it can be very prone to being over-extracted. Tonkotsu, with pork bones, you cannot over-extract this thing. You can literally cook it forever. In fact, the goal is to cook it so much that like it's disintegrating, basically, right? So the 2 are polar opposites. And so sometimes some chefs in like this era are like, well, why don't we just do them separately and then blend them at the end when they're both perfect, right? Yeah. And so there's lots of little innovation in that regard. The toppings are always changing. You know, sous vide becomes prevalent in the 2000s. So they're sous videing the chashu as opposed to just braising it. I could go on and on.
Sure,
and people are still always messing around with it, you know?
So let's go back to the number of iterations it took for you to finally feel it was good. And I know in previous episodes you've said that the longer you do this, you feel like you got good later on.
Yeah.
So what feeling did you have that led you to persevere and keep coming back? Or was it just the great like love for ramen and you keep missing the mark personally that kept you to keep going, that motivated you to keep going?
I think it's like a self-flagellation thing in a way, which is to say I did it. It's funny. I don't know. It's funny because I was looking at like a photo of the first bowl ramen I ever made on Facebook or something. I posted on Facebook. And I remember my caption was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever made. And I think at the time it was just like, I was so happy to be done with it and just like to accomplish it and make it. But I think as I like stewed on it, I kept thinking like, this is not really like what I had in Japan. And so I was kind of chasing a level of nostalgia from leaving the country, going from like a lifestyle and then shifting and being like, can I do this? And, you know, I did it and I thought it was good, but that feeling quickly fades, right?
That's the feeling. So the feeling it's of like, it is pretty good. And I know, and that changes over time. That changes over time.
Because I think that if you're a craftsman, your lens changes too.
It's getting sharper?
Yeah, sharper and sharper every time. Like the kind of stuff I notice now when I make a bowl of ramen is like, to my 12 years ago self would be like unfathomable, right? Like I had some people over a couple weeks ago and it's like, I can tell when the noodle is done just by the way it looks in the basket as it's cooking now. It does this weird thing where it kind of like, it shifts in the basket in a certain way and you're just like, it's done.
And that comes with iterations.
It comes with iteration. It comes with practice and just doing the work and making it over and over and over again.
And because I think you said this on with Keizo of some chefs.
Keizo Shimamoto, the best ramen chef in the world. Honestly, one of the best.
I loved every episode.
He's incredible.
And you guys said, you know, some chefs time it, and then some chefs eyeball
I time it.
You still time it? Okay.
I definitely still time it because I don't trust myself enough to just eyeball it or to notice that brief shift where it's perfect, right? So I time it. That doesn't mean that the timing doesn't change from day to day. I think you have to do like your dial in. You have to like kind of know like today the noodle's cooking for 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Yesterday it was 2 minutes 30, right? You still have to do that work of dialing in, but then you hit the timer. You have to, because I think the thing that a lot of folks I recognize as a future business owner is I can't expect everyone to be that dialed into it as me. Right. And they never will be, because they're either not going to care as much, or they're just not going to have as much experience or whatever. And they need objective proxies to be able to say, this is good, this is sufficient. And numbers are objective. Like, they're not always perfect. Right. Again, there's nuances in noodle batch to batch, and there's nuances.
But you can't scale eyeballing.
But I can't scale. Hey man, did you notice this? No.
But is that what was it in your mind? Like scaling at that time?
So my approach has always been methodical, because I didn't trust my intuition enough, right? Like when I was making ramen, it's like I made this bowl and I liked it, and then I didn't like it. And I was like, well, how do I make it better? And my approach was, if I have to develop a recipe, I need to document something. I need to write it down. The one I wrote down at the time was just like a hodgepodge of ideas, and it was super messy. And so it was more like a comfort thing. It's like, I'm going to feel more comfortable with this if I write all of it down. So if I'm going to make noodles again, I better write down the recipe. And part of it was also that the recipes that I was referencing were all weird and they didn't make sense. So I had to adjust them. And so in the adjustment process, I was writing down things. So like, you see a recipe online, no one was making ramen at home in the United States. So it's like, the recipe would have crazy ratios that didn't make sense for someone with no experience. Mm-hmm. And so I'd try it and it would fail miserably. Like, the dough wouldn't come together. The noodles were terrible. I'd be like, what's wrong with me? It's like, well, you don't know the process. And so I needed to change the recipe to make it easier. And that meant writing it down. I need to do math to figure it out. Right. And the same for the soup, and the same for the tare and everything else. The second element of it was replication. Like, if I feel like I finally got like a miso tare, a miso seasoning I liked. And then it was like, well, how do I do that again? I don't even remember how I did it last time. So I would be making this dish and just tasting it and be like, it tastes good now, or it doesn't taste good now. Okay. And I kind of got tired of that. It's like, I need to get closer, right? So documentation helped a lot. Being more precise with my measurement helped a lot. So it's really about as I started getting better at it, I was like, well, I want to keep doing it. Yeah. I want to actually remember. I can't remember all this stuff. So if I write it somewhere, then I can always reference it in the future.
Amazing.
And if I write 100%. I should write it
objectively
with actual measurement, not just like put some onion and ginger in a blender and then add miso and you're done. It's like, well, how much? Like, what's the amount? Like, I don't have the feeling for what's good and what's not.
Okay, I understand.
So it's an interesting point though, because as I've developed, more and more feeling has come into my cooking, more and more intuition. But I think that a lot of chefs struggle with this is they build a ton of intuition because they just have done it so much. But you can't teach intuition.
It's fine if you're a one-man show. Yeah.
Yeah, it works if you're in a ramen shop that only does 100 bowls a day and you just work by yourself. But then you're a slave to the ramen shop. You literally have nothing else but that shop, and you can't do anything else but that. And it's impossible to teach. It's so difficult to teach.
What led you to Reddit?
Needing a creative outlet for all of this nonsense that I was doing in my apartment. Okay. I was sharing on Facebook, and I was like, whatever. It's and also a desire to meet other people who were doing it. Because for a while, it felt like I was the only one.
Were there other people? There were other people?
At the time, there was 15,000 people on that subreddit. And a handful of them were
for anyone listening, this is where the name Ramen Lord comes from.
Yes, correct. I mean, I needed an account, so I made an account called Ramen Lord. Yeah. It was not very big. Okay. There were only a handful of us. There was 6 or 7 other guys who were into this kind of thing. And we all have a similar self-hating feeling about ourselves. Whoa. I think that ramen in general attracts this kind of person. I've seen this in a number of places. There's this big Discord now, the Ramen Network, there's the subreddit, there's a lot of places. And the folks who make ramen really kind of have a chip on their shoulder for self-improvement in a way that is kind of strange.
Who are they trying to prove it to?
Themselves. Fundamentally.
But where did that come from?
I don't know, dude. That's a difference from every individual that I've ever met. But it's a very strong common thread across a number of these folks. They feel a certain, myself included. I'm saying this from personal experience, so it might come across like I'm projecting, but I genuinely know this, that a lot of people feel like these guys are ultra hardworking folk, and they like to beat their heads against a table over a topic over and over and over again. Because ramen is tough enough that to nail it, you really kind of have to do that work. I don't know if you heard the concept of grit by Angela Duckworth, but I think it's like very prevalent in ramen, which is grit is this idea of passion and perseverance. That is, you really love something, and also you're willing to just do it over and over and over again, even if you fail miserably.
Yeah.
And ramen is that way because it's not something you can just pick up one day and just do it and you're done. It takes a lot of like trial and error and figuring it out and making adjustments, and that attracts a certain kind of person. And a lot of those people in the ramen subreddit felt like they had something to prove, right? In particular, also, we were all young. We were all in our 20s. So like there's also an element of like youth. You don't have as much self-confidence, right? You're still like growing as a person. And so it's that combination of like, I felt like I wanted to like get better at ramen. I wanted to meet people who were getting better at ramen. And also I didn't feel like I was very good at ramen, but I was definitely better than everybody else because no one was doing it. So it's like, let me like feel my self-worth a little bit here. So I started posting.
Do you feel like this is the first time you felt seen or heard?
Yes. I mean, without getting too much into like therapy talk, definitely.
This sometimes feels like therapy.
This definitely feels like therapy. I mean, I've also done a lot of therapy, so I'm pretty familiar with this path, which is, yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like I was really a standout person until I found ramen. Like there was nothing in my mind that was like, whoa, this is like my unique like passion. I was just like floating through life in a lot of ways. And also feeling like I was getting good at something I was passionate about and ahead of other people on. So like I was competitively good at it. It's like a very addictive feeling, especially for a young kid. Now that I'm in my mid 30s, that's not really what drives me anymore. But at the time it was like, whoa, like, yeah, I want more of that. Like the fame and like, especially as you started posting on the Reddit subreddit and people were commenting on it saying how much they loved it. And they were like, more recipes. I want more. I was like, oh, people actually want this. So like people are interested in what I'm writing, and I can get like accolades for my work. Like not a feeling that I had gotten very much of in the past. So yeah. And I think a lot of people in their 20s are seeking this. They're trying to find purpose. They're trying to find identity. So the ramen subreddit definitely gave me that initially.
For those wondering, like there are people that will fly into Chicago for Mike's Ramen.
I have had that happen many times, yeah. Which is a little crazy, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, when I opened this ramen shop, there's been a bunch of people who are like, I'm going to come in. I'm flying in to have Mike's Ramen, which, you know, I think I make a dang good bowl of ramen. Trust me. Please believe. I think I make a great bowl of ramen, but I don't know if you should fly in for it. I don't know if you should make a trip out of it. I think you should just come to the ramen shop if you happen to be in Chicago, and I'm happy to serve a bowl of ramen. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I unfortunately was not paying attention early enough, but you've done over 50 pop-ups
yes.
and all over the country.
In a number of cities, and not all over the country.
Okay.
But like I've done one in Cincinnati, I've done one in Atlanta, I've done one in Nashville, a couple in New York.
Before meeting you, when I hear pop-ups, it's usually in your local town.
Well, I've done a bunch in Chicago, right?
Yeah,
like a lot.
But to be going to other cities.
Yeah, I mean, and I literally, somebody just messaged me this morning, like, if you want to do a pop-up in Miami, let me know. Like, now it's crazy. Before it was like, because people have learned a lot more about this in the last like 4 or 5 years too, right? Like, you know, I think that as Ramen Lord, I was kind of anonymous and everyone kind of liked the recipes, but they didn't really think much else about it beyond just recipes. But once I started doing these events, it was like, oh, you can now eat this. I want to try, right? I want to try what this guy's all about.
So there's the food component to it, but now that when you were popping up, there's also the personality and the charisma and the hospitality part of it. Did you like that? Did you enjoy that experience?
Not in some pop-ups more than others, because I think that I was always doing the work in the kitchen for the most part. Only up until recently was I not doing service.
Okay.
And even then I'm still doing service for the first couple of hours just to make sure the wheels are greased and the team feels good. I love talking to customers, and I love talking about ramen, and I love hospitality. So, I mean, it was just a natural fit for me. I also feel like ramen is still not particularly well understood in the United States. And so there's this opportunity of education. And so as I've developed this hobby, the education element of it has become more and more important to me. I mean, maybe it's not obvious, but I've done all this like historical reading and a lot of like reading about textbooks and materials, and I have a very academic mindset when it comes to a lot of this stuff in terms of my research acumen. And that is all part of the mission of the restaurant, which is like to be a place that talks about ramen in a thoughtful and compelling way. I really enjoy that part of the work. And sometimes you get to do it in a pop-up, but sometimes you're in the back of that kitchen and you can't see nobody. So it's like, I would prefer to, so the current restaurant that I'm building is an open kitchen, so that will not be a problem anymore. I will be available to talk to at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
But you probably had many takeaways of doing these pop-ups, especially thinking about how to scale.
I'm not in this position for this restaurant to want to scale it.
No. I'm saying scaling from cooking for people at home to now several hundred bowls.
Yes.
Right?
There is a fundamental difference between restaurant cooking and home cooking.
Yeah.
And they are not necessarily equitable skills. It's not like because you're a good home cook, you could be a restaurant cook. And it's also true that just because you're an awesome restaurant cook does not make you a good home cook, right? Like if I can make a soup for 150 people, trying to figure out how to do that at home is possibly a nightmare. I'm going to have a ton of food waste. It's like the conditions are all different. My capacity is different. The way in which the stove acts is different. Like that's just the soup. Everything else is the same thing. It's like these two things are not necessarily equitable. And so, I by the point I was doing pop-ups, I had a good idea of how to make ramen at home, but I had to relearn a bunch of stuff. Did you in the kitchen.
Did you have to compromise anything?
Yes, but not too much, because ramen is designed for restaurants first. It's not really designed for home cooks, right? Like, think about the dishes of classic yore that home cooks make that are tough to scale up. I think about like my grandma made fresh pasta. Making fresh pasta is like such a laborious process. It's hard to scale it, and especially if you're doing it by hand with like a rolling pin, super brutal. But ramen starts as a restaurant food. It's like no one's making it at home. So it's designed to be done in those settings. It's designed to be done in big stock pots. It's designed to use prefab noodles, or the machines are designed to make them in a certain specific way. Scaling it down is a lot harder because now it's like, okay, I want to make a tonkotsu. How am I going to boil this thing for 18 hours, right? I have no idea. How am I going to make this tare with this thing? I need to soak it a certain way, or like how much... I can't find the right amount of pork belly to make this, and the vessels are all the wrong size.
Without letting a lot go to
waste.
It's
like,
right?
yeah. So it's just scaling it down was tough. The things that I learned to scale up were more about like a little bit of the learn to let go. When you're at home, you can be a really big control freak because you're only making like 6 to 10 servings at a time. So you can be really fixated on the details.
How many people would you have helping you at each pop-up?
Sometimes 0, sometimes 4. It depends on... I would always have people helping during service, right? Because it's just impossible to serve 70 to 150 people by yourself. Prep? But in many of them, I would be the only one doing all the prep. Ooh. That's not as true anymore, but it used to be the case, yeah.
That's wild.
Like the first pop I did in Chicago was Pauly G's.
Pauly G's?
Shout out to Pauly G's.
I was there this weekend.
Yeah. Shout out to Pauly G's. Derek invited me in. This was in, 2017? 2017. It's been 2018, 5 years ago.
That's when the podcast started. Holy shit.
Yeah. So Derek invited me in. I had just done the one in New York.
Oh.
And he was like, do you want to do pop-up? And I was like, sure. Why not? I'm addicted. I need to do more. And I did all the prep. I prepped everything. We bought the noodles, but I prepped everything. I made everything myself. And then basically, when we would run these pop-ups, I would hire a bartender from Derek's team.
Oh.
I would hire a guy to do bussing and dishwashing. And then I would pay a buddy of mine to help me do the assembly.
Okay.
And we only did like 70 bowls at a time. But at the time, that was a lot to me. That was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do more than that. That's just like a lot for me to handle. And we were doing like 3 different ramens, and I would prep everything. I made every single component. All the soup, all the chashu, all the tares, all the toppings, everything. It's like I made everything by myself. Yeah, it's crazy. Don't do that. It's a mistake.
And how did it go? How did it go at Pauly G's?
Great. Fantastic.
Was there like a line out the door? And
well, we sold tickets, right?
Tickets. Okay.
I've always sold tickets because I've done a couple line out the door things, and it's just been crazy.
Like first come, first serve?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did one at Pauly G's, and we sold like 100 bowls, and people lined up starting at like 9 a.m. to get their tickets so they can come back at 11. That was a little crazy. Most recently, last April, so about a year ago, I did one with Julia Momose at Kumiko, nice. And that was like, there was like a line of 100 people like an hour before opening, so we had to cut the line short. So it's like the tickets are beneficial in that people don't feel like, am I going to get it or not? It's like you either bought the ticket or you didn't. But the negative is the tickets sell out instantly. So, and they've always sold out instantly.
Good for business, but
even the first ramen pop-up I did at Pauly G's, it was like gone instantly. It's crazy.
So wild.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. Is there part of you that wishes it was more, I don't know if it's fair. I mean, but like.
Yes, all the time. Because I get complaints from both sides, right? Like if you're looking at a line, you're like, dude, I'm not waiting 3 hours for ramen. This is garbage, right? Like I've gotten that complaint. And people have waited multiple hours for this bowl of ramen before. And I also get complaints from people who are like, the tickets are super unfair. It's like, I can never get one. This is crazy. What is this nonsense? So again, I'm opening a restaurant. So hopefully we can be equitable at both sides, right? So there will be some walk-in allowed. There will also be reservations. We'll just cater to both.
And with those reservations, is it like a down payment?
Yeah, we're going to do payment. In fact, I'm still toying with this idea, and I'm sure people will hate me for this, but in my mind, if you're going to get a reservation, you should be charged a premium for that privilege of not having to wait in line.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that perspective.
Because to me, it is harder to wait in the cold of Chicago in a line or in a wait line or in a queue than it is to just click get a reservation. However, that's going to piss people off. So I would still like a down payment, though. Like the down payments, I think fundamentally.
Well, imagine if you have canceled reservations. That would suck.
Yeah, I mean the research on. I mean, it's not research, but like the data on this is pretty conclusive, which is that having a down payment dramatically reduces what we call no shows. So
right.
I have to.
You need some skin in the game.
For a ramen shop in particular, volume is the key, right? So you need to be able. You can't have people canceling on you, right? You need people in the door, and you got to be efficient. You got to like. They come in and they sit and they eat, and then you're able to clean everything up and get the next group of people in. So anytime somebody cancels, it messes with that flow. It's like, well, what am I going to do with that table now? Yeah. Try and put some walk in there. Maybe it'll be optimized. Maybe it won't, right? So optimization of the seating, optimization of the arrangement, very important. So we'll have both because I want to cater to both. But yeah, it's going to be prepaid, I think, for the reservation.
That's a smart move.
I think it makes sense, yeah.
I think I saw a social media post from Dear Margaret, and they're having that issue of no-shows.
Yeah, every restaurant has this. I know guys who didn't charge for reservations. They'd get as much as 30 to 50% of the reservations canceled day of. It's like you go from thinking you're going to have a full house to you're not having anyone in that restaurant anymore. Yeah. And how do you accommodate that? Like, I'm a lucky person in that I have some demand behind this. So there might be some walk-ins that can kind of fill the space, but the difference between being profitable versus literally losing money when you're losing that many reservations. So prepay reduces this.
You spent some time staging for ramen restaurants, right?
Just one.
Just one.
One.
And from what I remember, it didn't go well.
I mean, it was fine. I just think that it wasn't a good fit. Like, the crew was like more fine dining oriented. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I had no experience.
What led you there?
Well, so this was like what? 2015, 2014? I don't know. I felt like ramen shops were picking up in Chicago at this time, and I was very behind the ball in terms of like getting to open a ramen shop. I felt like I wanted to be in the ramen scene in Chicago.
Yeah, before.
This is even before like people had written about me though. So I was just making ramen as this guy, Ramen Lord, and like kind of popular, but not really. And I was like, my goal was always like to become I wanted to like, I don't know, at the time in my early 20s, I was like, I want to become known for ramen, right? And it's like, well, what are the pathways to do that? One is to open a restaurant that becomes popular. So I was like, well, to do that, I'm going to need to learn how to work in a restaurant. But, it just doesn't always work out.
And you've worked in other restaurants before.
I had.
Italian restaurants.
So like I worked in an Italian restaurant and then like, I just was not a good fit again. And I kind of fizzled out on it because I felt like the culture of restaurants was often very demeaning and cruel. And that was also true in this ramen restaurant that I worked in. It's very demeaning and cruel and not particularly collaborative. And not particularly education oriented.
Their
So
fucking loss. Holy
yeah,
shit.
well, but it's like I don't really treat it as anything but what it is, which is that it just wasn't a good fit, right?
Okay.
So I did the thing and it didn't work out, and that kind of also made me feel like I'm not going to go down the restaurant route.
Interesting.
But the interesting thing about all of these things is you don't have to work in someone else's kitchen to open your own place. I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes opening it, but I basically decided like I can just circumvent this whole thing, right? I don't need to go down this very traditional path of like finding someone to like get my and have them kick my ass for a year and like make me feel like terrible and beat me down. I can open it and make it however I want it to be, and I can make the culture of the place however I want it to be, and it doesn't have to be toxic and it doesn't have to be rude. And once I realized that, it was more like, well, let's do these pop-ups then, right? And then the pop-ups were popular. And it's like, oh, I can learn how to run a restaurant without having anyone to badger me around. And I can do it in my culture and my style and my food, right? So as the pop-ups became what they are, it's just like I just circumvented the whole thing basically.
What if it weren't for these pop-ups? I know there's an app called Schmeal where you can sell your own.
Yes, I think they reached out to me at one point.
Oh,
I don't know. But it's like to go ramen. It's like weird.
Which is another
Or
conversation.
ramen kits.
Yeah.
You know, like we did ramen kits during the pandemic. Those are actually pretty cool. But people had to be willing to cook at home, which is most people don't want to cook at home. They want to just get the food and eat it. So,
so your experiences in the restaurant industry, how has that shaped you in the sense of now you're in the opportunity to build a team?
I think it just reinforced the importance of not being a dick. Like so many of these restaurants I go into, it just feels tense and unhappy and like nothing is ever good enough. And the enemy of, the enemy of good is good enough basically, which is like, I don't actually know what the saying is, but my point, this is not going to sound very eloquent. You have to accept that things are not going to be perfect because perfection is impossible. And I think a lot of these chefs still have this keen chip on their shoulder of like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's always good enough. It's just, is it not perfect? And the reality is it's never perfect. Perfect is impossible. It's not real. It doesn't exist. For me, it's been as a perfectionist guy who iterates a lot, I've taken a lot of that struggle on internally, but I don't force on other people. I'm very grateful to other people who are willing to help. Right?
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that people are willing to be a part of this team, that people want to work at a ramen shop, that people are willing to dedicate their time and energy to doing this very difficult process. So to me, and I knew this even as soon as like doing these pop-ups where I felt like I have to do this all by myself. And then like people were willing to come in, and even though I'm paying them, they're still willing to do this work. Right? Like the ramen shop is all about building a community of people who want to work in ramen and want to do ramen, and not about this is the best ramen, this is the greatest ramen, but about doing really like we want to make awesome ramen.
Yeah.
But we believe in it and we all support one another to accomplish that goal, right? It's not about the self-serving individuals here. It's not about pride or arrogance. It's about making awesome ramen in the city of Chicago.
So when building the team, what are some qualities or traits you're looking for?
Yeah, I don't have any except one. I have one quality, and I joke about this a lot at my day job because I also think this quality is important. It is what I call the give a shit index, which is your propensity to actually care about doing the right thing and your lack of propensity to care about taking shortcuts or sidestepping alternatives. Because the reality of ramen work is like it's sometimes a grind, it's sometimes brutal, it's sometimes physically demanding, and it's not always easy. That's not to say that you can't make it easier, but if you got to slice scallions and you got to slice a case of scallions, there's only one way to do it. You can either do it the good way, or you can do it in big chunks that are faster, but they don't look as nice on the bowl. You just have to do it the right way. And I'm looking for people, and I'm not really looking right now because we're so far out from finishing this restaurant, but my goal will be to find people who just give a shit. And they don't have to have any skill at all. They don't have to have any skills at all, but do they actually give a shit, and are they willing to actually do the work? That to me is really fundamental. In return for that, I hope they'll feel like they're compensated correctly, and I feel like they will have enough autonomy and ability to like be creative in the job.
Yeah.
Like again, I'm not tied. I'm always looking to improve this thing, so I'm not tied to any one particular methodology. if a better methodology or better approach works better. And I don't have enough hubris to be like, this is my way and do it my way or it's wrong.
Right.
As long as the result is still good, right? As long as the result is correct. Like I'm open to that feedback constantly. It's how I got to where I am is through the iterative process and through learning and adjusting myself. So I'm open to that constantly. So it sounds corny, but it's like, what is this person's give a shit index? Do they give a shit? If they do, they're going to be a good fit. And if they don't, then it won't work.
And as you start to scale, do you worry that you'll be in a position that will be too far removed from what brought you here in the first place?
No, because I'm actually okay not having to do all the cooking. Like I would love to be able to extradite myself from that role.
Wow.
Yeah. Because that means that I've developed a team that's so strong and is so passionate and driven that they can do it. And that's like the dream. It's like what started me on this, right? Like I was sharing all this knowledge and I also just felt like no one knew anything about ramen. So if I can have a team that really can make awesome ramen, then it's like mission accomplished, right? Like that's what I want. The question is always, can you? I think that this has just been a struggle for the restaurant industry broadly, which is finding folks who want to do this kind of work. Some of it's because they're all paid nothing. So you got to compensate them well. But some of it's just because it's a tough job and that's not for everybody.
And with trying to compensate them appropriately and fairly, it's tough because there's a limitation to the cost of a bowl of ramen.
Yes.
You don't want it to cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I mean, I know I can charge a little bit more premium. Like I can charge $18, $19 on a bowl of ramen and still sell out. So I'm going to. Like I'm going to charge what it takes. Second thing is we're going to have a service charge so that all that's going to go towards back of house and front of house. And the third thing as part of the staffing is I really want to make sure that people rotate. So I don't want to have like, in my mind, this restaurant is best when everyone can kind of play any role, right? One, it reduces the issues of a person goes missing. You have redundancy, which I think is important for any business that people can step in when things are missing. Two, it reduces this kind of feeling of like, oh, I'm better than so-and-so because I do this and they do that, which I think there's always this weird tension in front of back of house where like the servers feel like they deserve something and the cooks feel like they deserve something. I want everyone to kind of be able to do everything.
Love that.
As a result, the compensation model changes. Everybody gets paid basically the same rate and they all kind of split the service pool fairly, but they all get paid like a really good cook. Like they'll probably net out at like $20, $25 an hour after all said and done, which is a pretty good wage for someone doing that kind of job. It's not a good wage for a server, but it's a great wage for someone who has to do everything. And it just allows for more flexibility. I don't know if this will pan out. There's lots of unknowns in this restaurant world. We're going to see how this goes, but I want people to be compensated accordingly. And if I'm being very conservative with my numbers broadly. So if the place is just blowing up, then there's more benefits for everybody, right? If we sell 150 bowls every day as opposed to 100 or 120, that's extra revenue that goes directly to the staff. And you have to touch it. And so they're happier. Ultimately, I think a lot of the time people don't do this work because they're like not compensated well. They get paid nothing.
Yeah.
I have a certain purpose and part of that is to build a strong team. So that team needs to feel like taken care of by the business. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's very critical.
Speaking of like fair compensation and funding, this is a self-funded project.
Yeah. Don't remind me.
What led you into, is it marketing research?
Yeah.
What led you into that?
So
your day job, my
day job.
Yeah.
So my current job is marketing research, which is like primarily survey research. So a lot of survey research, all for giant, huge, multi-billion-dollar corporations primarily. They're looking into things like brand opinion and media effectiveness and segmentation, ROI, lots of like data used to make decisions, strategic decisions for the business. That's what I primarily work in. And I got into that job because in college I studied business and marketing, and I also have a obvious math affinity. Like I'm very good at math. And I just really like things like statistics and analysis in undergrad, and market research is effectively that. It's taking data and using it then to inform in a consultative way business decision making. So, it's either that or finance, and I just found finance so like dry comparatively. Finance is all just about the P&L. It's like, how's the numbers looking this quarter? Oh, it's not looking so good. Bump, like fix your labor cost, or fix your food cost, or fix your COGS, or some other like just like very matter of fact assessment. But marketing research is all about, if you're doing a campaign effectiveness campaign, you're always like, well, this thing doesn't resonate with these people, so we need to adjust it a certain way. Or you're doing a segmentation, you say, this segment has these psychographic details based on our analysis, and so when you want to send messaging to them or send promotions to them, you can keep that in consideration. It's more creative. Yeah. It balances this kind of creativity element of it with the data, with the numbers. So there's an objectivity element to it too. And as it should be as no surprise, I like the objectivity of it. I like being like 64% of X people said this, and so that's your group, right? Like this group's going to resonate with this. Or you need to improve your perceptions with this audience because they say you're bad here, 24% say it, and your competitors say 74%, right? So you need to improve, right? Like there's just numbers. There's no like, yes, or is it true? Is it not true? It's like that the data is what the data is,
Is there any part of you that is going to miss are you going to, because I'm guessing you're going to leave the job.
Yes.
Right. Is there any part of you that's going to miss that, or is it just another chapter? And
I mean, I have nothing against the research firm I work for, right? Like, and the research firm has been very good to me, and I've had a long career there. I've been there over a decade, right? So it's nothing against research. It's just this opportunity of opening a ramen shop,
which has been presented previously by other financiers. Not really?
I mean, kind of. And, like I've had like, there's been like, I've gotten a number of requests from like these food halls. I would say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, those are almost always bad deals. Yeah, really bad deals. Most of those food halls take anywhere from 15 to 30% of your revenue off the top if you work there. So they don't give you rent, but they just take your revenue. So if you think about the basic breakdown of a restaurant, approximately 30% of your operating cost comes from just food cost, maybe 25% if you're smart. But a quarter to a third of your cost is just food. You're just buying food. It costs money. So a lot of people might hear that and go, well, then why are restaurants so expensive if it's a third of the price? It's like, well, another third of it is people, right? So another third of it's people. So if I'm at 60-something% cost already, and that place is taking another 30%, I've only got 10% of revenue as wiggle room. And I have lots of other things like maintenance and paying myself and paying for operating costs and a website and lots of other extraneous costs that come in. And suddenly your margins don't look very good. A good restaurant in general should have a 10% margin on EBITDA, earnings for interest, tax, depreciation, blah, blah, blah. The final number before you pay taxes, basically. You should have about 10% of your revenue be that. That's a pretty good place to be. That sucks as a business, but that's good for a restaurant.
That's so wild.
Like most businesses should be much higher on EBITDA. They should have much more profit. Restaurants don't hit that number usually, and a lot of restaurants are single digit on their total margin. So you want 10%. If you can't hit 10% because of that business setup, you're in trouble, I think, frankly. And so all of these food halls are just scraping all that money from you. It's the same reason why I feel like a lot of the delivery services are not very good, because they also reduce your total margin considerably. So like, let's say I'm going on Grubhub and I want to deliver food. Grubhub takes 30% commission on the sale. So 30%, again, you have 60%, give or take, on that sale. Plus another 30%, you're talking 10% profit.
Yeah.
It's just not very much. So you really got to be careful with that stuff and really do your numbers. It depends on the food that
you're delivering too.
Yeah. And how much of that sale are you really going to do? I don't know. To me, the business of the restaurant, it's complicated in a lot of ways, but fundamentally you just need to look at like, how much money do I think I'm going to make? Yeah. How much cost am I going to have? And what's going to cost the most and what's not going to cost the most? And how do I reduce the things that cost a bunch? And how do I make the things that cost a lot cost less? So, yeah.
At the beginning of the episode, I talked about how we wanted to help people gain an appreciation for what you're accomplishing. And objectively, you've previously shared that you have splurged on a noodle making machine. Mm-hmm. The Lamborghini of noodle making machines.
The Lamborghini of noodle making. The Yamato Richmond 1. It's actually their entry level model.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's not even. It's like it's a Lamborghini, but they got there's different kinds of Lamborghinis. This is like their entry level Lamborghini.
And how much is it?
It was $30,000, but that doesn't include the $5K in shipping and the other $5K or so of ancillary items I bought.
Sure.
In addition,
Sure,
I bought a rack that can hold the rolled noodles in such a way that it's easy to store them, and I bought like 3 other cutters, and the cutters are very intricately made and they're very expensive. I think each one's like $1,000. So
wow.
Yeah, I spent about $40,000 all in.
Going to the location, you've said this on the last episode with Keizo, but like, how did you decide on the place across from Pretty Cool Ice Cream? I think 2340?
2340 North California Avenue is where this place is located. I had a number of criteria to opening the restaurant. I've been looking for since pre-pandemic, basically, but not really seriously since during the pandemic.
Okay.
But that's still about 3 years of looking, right? And so I had a number of criteria based on my business plan and based on just what I needed the ramen shop to be. The first was I didn't want it to be huge. It needs to be less than 2,000 square feet, which is hard to find in Chicago, frankly. Most restaurants are bigger. Most restaurants are way bigger because they want to put as many seats in they want to put as many seats in as they can. They want as many people buying as they can. I wanted it needed to be a second generation space. So when I say that, I mean is I didn't want to have to spend a crazy amount of money rehabilitating the place or building the place out. In hindsight, that saved me $200,000 to $300,000, which is important. It's a lot of savings because it's already expensive. So to save that amount of money is important.
How much is the cost of those things after the restaurant leaves?
Zero.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like the hood is there. So I'm just like, I get.
And how much would it have been to install?
$200,000, right? So it's like a lot of money to save. Or it's like a walk-in. The walk-in is there. So I don't have to build a new walk-in cooler. That's just there. I don't have to install 2 new bathrooms. Each bathroom might be $50,000, right? Like, it's expensive.
And where did that foresight come from?
That's just, I think a lot of restaurateurs will agree with this assessment.
Okay.
Like, building a restaurant from scratch is really expensive. It's expensive to get the ductwork. It's expensive to do the electric and the plumbing. It's expensive to build the bathrooms that are mandatory. It's expensive to get the cleaning stations and everything. It's just expensive. And it's still expensive for me right now. God, it's expensive. God, it's expensive. I'm constantly like, Jesus, it's so much more money than I expected. But that stuff is expensive. So if you can save on that, you're going to save yourself hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many restaurateurs I've met have said they only look at second-gen spaces for this reason. It saves you a lot of work. You'll still have to rehab the place and build it out, and you're kind of limited in terms of the format, but it's often better in terms of the finances than Vanilla Box, unless you have like an investor who's willing to just go all in.
Yeah.
It's the pros and cons.
Would you have allowed that if you met with the right person? Because are you kind of relinquishing some control unless they gave you full creative control? Or
I feel like for me, I would not be happy with an investor really unless they only had a small percentage of the business.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's mostly because I'm not really looking to make a killing running this restaurant. I'm looking to have a restaurant that treats my employees fairly, makes absolutely delicious ramen, and affords me a reasonable living situation in terms of a living income, basically. Yeah. I'm not looking to get a huge return on my investment. I'm not looking to have a crazy profit margin, and I'm not looking to open 40 of these ramen shops in the next 10 years, right? That approach is fundamentally at odds with what a lot of investors want, which is they want a return. If an investor gives me $100,000, they want that $100,000 in 3 to 5 years. So if your restaurant, let's think about the numbers for a second. This ramen shop does $1 million in sales and its EBITDA is $100,000 as an example, and they own 10% of the restaurant, they're only getting $10K back. So it's going to take them 10 years to get paid back, right? It's just not that much. And it's common to value the restaurant based on its 1 year earnings. That's not atypical. So it's really hard to be an investor and get paid back. And so then you have this constant berating pressure from an investor to be like, well, you need to improve your profit margin, right? Yeah. So you got to fire some employees or reduce their wages, or you got to get shittier quality products, right? So I have none of that pressure now because I have no investors.
Amazing, yeah.
And that's important. That's really important because I want to make awesome ramen, right? The goal needs to be to make awesome ramen with cool people. and have people be happy. And so if it's like, for me, if the profit margin is below 10%, then it's like, okay, as long as we're cruising on, I'm fine, right? Like I'm going to ride this out because this restaurant's going to be here for a decade, 2 decades. Yeah. It's a going concern. And it also means that I'm not going to get pressure to do stupid stuff and make mistakes. I'm allowed to make mistakes when it's my restaurant. You're not allowed to make mistakes when somebody else's money is on the line, right? So, to me, it's just, if you're an investor, it's like, it's just tough to, there's a handful of investors who are really awesome about this. And they're just like, you can do whatever you want.
Cool.
I just want to be a part of it. But a lot of investors are not, and they want a quick return.
Sure.
And the restaurant industry is not a big money maker unless you own like a dozen restaurants. So it's a tough place to be, I think, for an investor. And I just didn't want that dynamic in this first space. Maybe if this one goes well and I decide down the line I'm going to do another one, then I'm definitely going to use somebody else's money.
You said it seats like maybe 50?
It seats about 50 people.
Cool. So back to Logan. What is it? Is it the culture in Logan? Is it the foot traffic? What do you feel?
Well, again, first restaurant I did was in Pauly G's, and I just feel like Logan is like the epicenter of the cool food right now. Like, so many of the most amazing restaurants are in Logan Square right now. And,
Can
it's
you
not...
rattle 3 of them?
Well, Pauly G's is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pauly G's. So good. Mitokaya is over there. Oh. So good. Daisy's is over there. So good. I mean, there's just so many restaurants. There's so many.
Went to Lula Cafe recently.
Lula, incredible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Second Generation was good too.
Second Generation? That's there too,
from
right?
Mott Street, yeah.
My God. You can name so many of them. And there's constantly new ones that are opening, and Big Kids is over there. I mean, it's just there's so many, right? Dorothy's Bistro is a little bit south of there, but that's also in that area. Like,
we're blessed in Chicago in general.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a very buzzy place for dining right now. So it just made sense. I mean, I'm opening up from pretty cool ice cream. Like, awesome. You know what I mean? Spilt Milk now is doing this thing with Umami Q. They have like crazy barbecue over there now. Like, definitely some of the best barbecue in the city now is being done in Spilt Milk. Like, every little thing is just like, there's cool stuff happening on that little area of Chicago.
Which begs the next question, like, what else does Mike eat?
I eat everything, man. I eat everything. That's my problem. That's my one vice is I eat.
Go-to burger spot.
Go-to burger spot, Fatso's.
Wow.
Fatso's Last Stand.
Live down the street.
Fire.
Nice.
So fire.
Go-to steak frites.
Steak frites? What? I don't really eat that much anymore, to be honest. I mean, I love steak frites, but the French food is... I think French food is hard to find. You have like Dear Margaret, and then you have like Obelix. I love Obelix. I don't know if I had the steak frites there, but I'm sure anything you eat at Obelix is incredible.
Go to, besides Pauly G's, pizza spot. And it depends on the pizzas, right?
Depends on the pizzas. I mean, the squares at Pauly G's are insane. I still feel like Pauly G's is the best wood-fired. Deep dish, I think you pick between George's Deep Dish or Millie's Pizza in the Pan.
I haven't been to Millie's.
Gotta check out Millie's.
Nice.
Most beautiful pizzas I've ever seen in my life.
What about Neapolitan?
Again, I give I know everyone's gonna say Spaccanopoli, but that's what I was saying by wood-fired. It's like, I think Pauly G's wood-fires are better.
Okay.
Yeah, so Pauly G's has the lock on like 3 styles, right? They get the squares.
Yeah.
They have the wood-fired, and then their slices are insane too.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Wicker Park Slice Shop is insane. It's crazy.
What about Tavern Cut?
Oh, good. Yes. Okay, couple. Pat's Fire.
Where's that?
In Lincoln Park. Insane. On Lincoln Avenue.
Okay.
Pat's is amazing. And then on Tuesdays, Middlebrow Bungalow does.
Heard about that place.
Oh
Nice.
My God, bro. Oh my God. Insane. It's so good. Incredible. Like, just insane pizza. Crazy. It's crazy they're making it. I mean, you're going to wait a long time and you're going to have a couple bevies, but it's insane pizza. It's only being done on Tuesdays too, so you can only do it once a week.
Okay. What about carne asada tacos?
Not a huge... I mean, tacos in general, we're in Pilsen right now, so definitely somewhere around here. I really like... If I'm going for tacos, I'm going to go out of my way for tacos. I'm going to probably try and get carnitas, and then I'm going to Don Pedro or Carnitas Urapan.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay.
For my favorite taco place, though, is obviously number one, the best. Everyone knows it. La Chaparita.
Where's that?
La Chaparita is the best. It's you get the lengua taco. You get a lengua taco, and then you got to get the tripas, the intestine taco.
Yeah.
Get it extra crispy. It's life changing.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. It's like that's in like I want to say like Little Village area, close to here.
Yeah, just west of here.
Yeah, close to here. It's very unassuming, and then you walk in and you're like, oh, this is the real deal, bro. Amazing. It's unbelievable, incredible.
There's a place next to Menya Goku. Asadero is really good too.
Okay,
for
yeah.
carne asada
Menya
tacos.
Goku is cool. That's a ramen shop.
That's where I get Tantan Men.
Great Tantan Men.
Yeah.
Great Tantan Men. Yeah.
So to kind of bring everything back together, we're approaching an hour and a half. What would you want someone to experience when they walk into your shop? Because I know there's not much hospitality in Japanese ramen shops, but what is think all 5 senses?
Yeah.
Visual, smell, feel, like all that stuff. What do you want them to experience?
So I want people to come into this and know it's a ramen shop without thinking, oh, this is just some stereotypical Japanese ramen shop. So we're very careful on the aesthetic design that we're working towards right now. I'm working with an awesome design company, Siren Betty. Incredible, an amazing design company. So we wanted to find that balance. We have an open kitchen because I want people to see the ramen being made because we're making everything. So I want people to feel like, oh, this is real food. And also, I want it to smell like a ramen shop, which has a particular smell to it. And I hope we'll accomplish it, but I don't know. We'll see.
How do you plan to accomplish it? Is it just because of the open kitchen or?
Yeah, but also we have a wok that's cooking all the miso, tare, and stuff. And that's going to have like this beautiful, fragrant, round quality to it. And it's very rare that a miso ramen shop shows this part off. This is almost like secretive. So we're ignoring that whole part. We're going to show everything. And it creates like a bouquet of aroma, like garlic and ginger and miso. So I'm hoping that kind of pervades the restaurant a little bit. And, I want the restaurant to feel warm and but also kind of buzzy. Like the seats are kind of close together. It's going to be pretty crowded, right? When it's full and it's at capacity. And there's almost an intentional level of discomfort that I want for some of the seats. Like I don't want people to feel like I could just sit here for an hour and a half. I want people to feel like you kind of have to force this on them, unfortunately, but it's a certain level of like, I am here just to have a bowl of ramen.
Yeah.
The menu reflects that. There's not a lot of stuff on the menu. It's like you get a bowl of ramen, a bev, you get maybe a side of rice if you're hungry, and then you go about your day.
Because in Japan, it's a 10-minute thing?
Yeah, because in Japan, it's like you sit down, you eat, and then you get the fuck out.
And what happens? I know you said this in previous pop-ups, but like what... What like, and your perspective has probably changed over time, but what happens to that bowl of ramen if you just sit there and chat?
So a lot of people will say that it quote unquote dies. I don't know if I would go that far, but depending upon the noodle and how you've produced it, the noodle will get super soggy and the soup will lose a lot of its kind of aliveness because it becomes colder. So there, if you think about the soup, it tastes different depending upon its temperature. When it's really hot, it tastes a certain way than when it's warm versus when it's cold. And so I personally like experiencing that soup throughout its phases. But if you don't taste it hot and you're only tasting it in the middle and the end point, you've missed out on this component of the experience. And I think the longer you wait, the more you're only trying it in one way, which is like the colder side, which is, in my opinion, the worst of the 3, right? It's the most viscous. It's got the least amount of brightness to it. The soup doesn't taste as fresh anymore. It's not as like complex necessarily. It's more like muddy in a way. So, you got to kind of eat it quickly and the noodles will get soggy, which is, soggy noodles are awful. So bad. But you can make a noodle that will resist that with like the right ingredients basically. So we've definitely designed, I say we, but it's me. I have worked really hard on designing a noodle that doesn't sog out super easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with a tight menu, what could people expect at the moment?
In terms of like what's on the menu?
Yep. What's on the menu? Because I know you want to do those things really well.
Yeah. 4 ramens.
Yeah.
4, which is crazy. Crazy for the city of Chicago. Maybe 5 as we get more comfortable.
Yeah.
1 is the miso, because that's what everyone knows me for. It's my favorite bowl of ramen ever. 1 is a shoyu, which I'm leaning towards like this kind of triple garlic shoyu that I've been working on that is so fire. It's so good. And I kind of have to have it. It's just awesome. And it's like every time I'm like making ramen, I'm like, I should just do that triple garlic one. That thing is awesome. Yeah. So do that one. And then 2 soupless ones, which are called like maze soba, mixing noodles. 1 is like based loosely on dan noodles. I've talked about this in other podcasts, but it's kind of this circuitous thing where dan noodles come to Japan and then they get turned into
from China.
A soup from China. Yeah. Well, ramen comes from China broadly. Right. But dan noodles do too. And then they like add soup to it to make it like a soupy version of dan noodles. And then they remove the soup and they call it soupless dan dan noodles. Shiru nashi tantan men, literally translating to soupless dan dan noodles. I really like that dish a lot, and I've made a pretty awesome one. So that one will be on the menu. And then there's this other, what I'm calling abura soba, or fatty or oily noodles, which is more like more classic Japanese flavors. It's got like soy sauce and garlic and lard and stuff, and it's just like kind of comforting. So those 4 ramens are all that's on the menu.
That's amazing.
And then a couple of rice sides. That's it. And beverage program. A very, very simple beverage program. Like pre-batch cocktails, handful of sakes, handful of beers.
Yeah.
Coke products.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah. Keep it simple.
I just think you got to. I mean, I think about the restaurants that just like that do the volume. The restaurants that do the volume and do high quality volume really focus. Like if you go to Carnita's place around here, you're not going to get a bunch of other stuff on the menu. It's like you're getting a Carnita's plate, big, small. What kind of carnitas are you getting? Do you want tortillas? Okay, cool. Send it. It's like the places I respect the most really keep the menu tight because they want to do that quality really well. And it's easier to do quality when you only have a few things to focus on. When you've got 40 things to focus on, you either need to hire a bunch of people to do it, and then your labor cost goes way up.
Yeah.
Or you have to be there all the time, which I would love to find a way to not be there 18 hours a day. 12 hours a day is fine,
Okay.
not 18 hours a day. Or it's just not, you just don't get it done. And then your menu is sporadic and difficult to execute. And that's just not ideal. So keep the menu tight. As we get comfortable with the first 4, we'll expand out and do other ones. There's always specials. You can always do unique specials of the week or specials of the month. Definitely open to that. But to start, keep it super simple and executable.
Are you thinking of other creative ways to generate revenue? Or now that you have a space, other ways that you can utilize that space for?
Immediately, no, but I have many ideas, right? So whether it's a noodle making class or certain educational things, those are all on the
You enjoy
table.
teaching.
Yeah. So it's like hosting a ramen making seminar is definitely on the table for anybody to sign up for. Those are definitely on the table. I don't really know what the pricing would be like for something like that. I imagine it would probably have to be kind of expensive. So I'm a little reluctant, but you could do something like that. There's also, selling noodles as this thing becomes more popular.
Like wholesaling your branded
Yeah,
noodles.
yeah.
Okay.
Or just selling to restaurants for things like as ancillary income, I think is not a bad idea. I already have had interest from a couple people asking, hey, can I get noodles for a special I'm running? Like I'm literally, right now, Obelix is using my noodles for their kind of brunch menu. So
Cool.
these are options too. But to be honest, I just want to make sure the restaurant is operating correctly first. And then I can think about ways to
It
build out the
reminds
other
me
stuff.
of, at least the size of the space reminds me of like an omakase. In a way.
It's bigger than that.
Yes, 50. Yes, but
it has a certain level of like intimacy.
Yeah.
I mean, the kitchen takes up about half of that space, and then the bathrooms take up another, 10th of that space. So it's really like the actual dining area is not a huge component of the space. Right. It's we're really cramming it in to get 50. It's like a big communal table and then the seating facing the kitchen, and then we have booths.
It reminds me of, if you're familiar with Fontano's subs, it's a deli like right behind UIC's library.
Yes.
And before there was a fire, people were elbow to elbow.
Yeah.
And after they did construction, you're no longer, it lost its charm in a way.
Yeah.
Subs are still great, but I
felt the same way about like places like Manny's. Like Manny's was like kind of tightly packed and dense and old, and then they remodeled it and they made it huge. And it's like, I still love Manny's, but I kind of sometimes wish it was like a little more crowded,
Where can people find you, Mike?
Instagram is definitely the way to go right now, just because that's where I'm typically. I guess you could reach me on Reddit too, but people don't really message people on Reddit very often. But Instagram is like my most prevalent place probably. That's just ramen__Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got this ebook, this fantastic ebook that if you were to put a price tag on it, what would it be?
I couldn't even tell you.
That's so wild.
It is antithetical to what I'm trying to accomplish.
I know, yeah.
I want people to learn about ramen.
Amazing.
And the idea of gatekeeping something I learned from someone else is just makes no sense. So it's free.
Do you feel like you always find something to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that book is always updated whenever I'm coming up with a new recipe or new ideas. So it's a Google Doc, so it just lives on in perpetuity. So anytime I have a new idea generated and I'm like, I'm ready to share this, it just goes right in the ebook. So I haven't had one in a while because I've been kind of busy with the restaurant, just getting set up. But anytime I like make a new noodle recipe or a new tare or a new soup, or I have some changed ideas about something, I'll just update it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Chicago's lucky to have you, Mike. You are definitely leaving your mark.
I'm lucky to be in Chicago. That's how I feel. It's the best of a lot of places in the United States.
I can't wait for people of Chicago and all over that fly in to continue to shower you with love.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say.
For many, food is medicine. Food is nourishment.
Yeah.
And it's a vessel to create community. And you're doing the damn thing. Thank you for hopping on the podcast, Mike. And we look forward to having some ramen sometime.
Sounds good. Appreciate the time.